Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to be using some new products from the March My Favorite Things release to create a masked and stenciled card. So I'm going to be using that Sunrise Radiating Rays stencil, which is new. I'm also going to be using this Anything But Basic Friendship stamp set, as well as the Die-namics Friends Duo dies. So I'm going to start out with a heart die here, and I'm just die cutting it from some Post-it note that has sticky all over the back. So once I get that Post-it note die cut, I'm going to place that onto my card front, and I'm going to use that as a mask. So I'm just using some heavyweight cardstock here, nothing special, just some Nina Solar White. And I have that mask placed on my card front, which measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And now I'm taking some delicate surface painter's tape and I'm applying that with the sticky side up so that I can use that to keep my stencil in place. Now you can see as I place the stencil on there, I'm actually positioning that circle where it wouldn't have any inking if you were to just leave it as it is, right over my heart. So instead of having a circle in this stencil design, I'm going to have a heart in the stencil design. So now that I have that all into position, I'm going to start doing some ink blending. And I am using some My Favorite Things mini ink cubes here. I'm using Red Hot, Coral Crush, Lemon Drop, Sour Apple, Tropical Teal, and Pure Plum to give me a rainbow look. And you can see when I start out with my ink blending tool, I'm really pressing it into the ink pad and then kind of dabbing it off on a piece of scratch paper over there. That's kind of what I like to think of as priming my ink blending tool. And when I start my ink blending from the center of that heart, I'm starting with a really light hand. You can always add more ink, you can't take it away. So I always want to start with a light hand and then build that color up where I want it to be most intense, which is towards the center of the stencil. As it moves out, I want it to kind of fade out a little bit. So once I have all of my ink blended onto my card front, I'm going to remove the stencil and clean it off. Now I'm pulling off the masking tape here, or the painter's tape. I should have left it in place because I'm just gonna put the stencil right back on. But if I'm being perfectly honest, I had no idea where I was going with this card when I was creating it. So, you know, you just move on with the process. You put the painter's tape back on. It's no big deal. And when I reposition the stencil back onto my card front, I'm going to shift it just a little bit to where there's a little bit of white showing on the side of those rays. And I'm going to hold it up a little bit closer to the camera so you can see what I'm talking about. You can kind of see the little bits of white alongside of those rays. Now that I have that position back into place, I've brought in a easy cleanup craft mat here, and I'm going to use some glitter paste and just spread that over the top of the stencil. So this glittered area will be slightly offset from my inked area. And you can see as this glitter goes on, it tends to pick up the color a little bit from the inking that I did, but that's okay. I'm just going to be strategic in how I put this onto my card front, moving from the center and away and kind of working in that same color tone as I apply more glitter paste. So I'm starting in the center and moving away, and I'll stay kind of in that red-green area. And you can see when I'm finished smearing all of this on, I'm going to clean up my tools, but you can see there is a little bit of tint to the glitter paste that I have on my palette knife. So I'm not going to put that back into my jar. I'm just going to wipe it off with a wipey and just call it a loss. So once I have my glitter paste on, I'm going to remove my stencil carefully, and I can go wash that off with some warm soapy water in my sink. But before I do that, I'm going to work very quickly to take off the mask, the heart mask that's in the center of that design there, because I don't want that to dry in place either. So I'm just going to use some tweezers to get it started and then gently pull it up. And you can see I am left with a beautiful clean heart in the center of that stenciled area rather than having the circle there. So it's a fun way to use a mask in conjunction with your stencil to create a different look. And I just love all that rainbow glittery goodness. So now I've set that way far, way far away from me because I have a tendency to put my hands in things on accident when they're sitting around and drying. So I went ahead and just placed it way far away from me, and I'm working on die cutting this friend word. I've die cut it from some white cardstock and then 2 layers from some black cardstock. And I think I actually got this idea from Stephanie Klauk. She layered up several white die cuts and then she put the 2 black layers underneath to give it kind of a shadowed effect. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm building up this friend die cut here out of the white cardstock. I'm using a glue pen to apply some liquid glue to the front of that and then stacking them on top of each other. Now I ended up stacking up 4 of these friend die cuts here, and then I placed the 2 black layers on the back side. I didn't offset the black layers. I simply lined them up with the white, and when you place them onto the card, it gives a really cool shadowed effect. So I'm just going to continue building this up until I have my full thickness, and this makes this die cut sentiment really stand out, really feel like a significant embellishment on the front of your card rather than just a little piece of paper. And it gives it dimension without having to cut down small strips of foam tape. So now that I have it stacked up there, I'm going to work on the sub-sentiment, and this is from the Anything But Basic Friendship stamp set, and I am going to heat emboss this onto some vellum. So I've gone ahead and prepped the surface of my vellum using a powder tool. I stamped my sentiment using some Versamark ink, and then I applied some gold embossing powder and heat set that. Now, I thought it would be fun to bring in a little bit of the rainbow into this like sentiment strip here, and it's going to sit on top of that friend die cut. And so you're going to kind of see the word through this rainbow that I'm creating. So I'm using the same ink colors as before, and I'm just tapping them on there. And I gave them just a minute to kind of sit and kind of soak into that vellum just a little bit. They don't soak in a ton. And then I went back and just dabbed off the excess ink, and then I am left with this really cool watercolored rainbow on the back side of this sentiment strip. And I did that on the back side, not on the same side that I did the embossing on, but I flipped it over and did it on the back side. Now I'm just trimming this down, and I've cut a slit up the center on each side of this and then cut from each corner to that center slit to create a banner end. And you can see how beautiful that's going to layer up over that die cut sentiment. And I went ahead and trimmed down my card front because I did have some white areas on the side and bottom of that panel that I created. So I went ahead and trimmed those off. I'm using some strong liquid adhesive right behind the embossing and attaching that vellum strip to my stacked up die cut word there. And then before I place this onto my card front, I am going to actually use that same die that I used to cut my mask to emboss into this card front. You can see when I turn it over there, it's really pushed into that cardstock. This extra step really helped that heart to like stand out. It almost feels three-dimensional in real life. And all I did was I set up my die cut machine to emboss and use the embossing mat rather than the cutting plate to get that embossed effect. And you can refer to your die cutting machine's manual for how to emboss with a wafer thin die in order to figure out the sandwich that you need to create this embossed effect with a die. So once that was done, I used the strong adhesive to adhere my die cut sentiment onto my card front, and I added just a little bit of black and white pattern paper that I actually created using the bold diagonal stripes background stamp from My Favorite Things, which is one of my favorites if you don't know. I attached my card front onto my card base using some foam adhesive, and then I'm finishing off my card design with a few sparkling clear sequins just to, you know, make it sparkle a little bit more because all of that glitter all over the background was apparently not enough for me. I'm kind of one of those where you can't have too much sparkle, so you might as well just, you know, make something that makes you happy, and if sparkle is what makes you happy, then go for the sparkle. So here's a look at the completed card project for today. You can see that awesome dimension that you get by stacking up those plain white die cuts. And then by adding just that hint of black cardstock behind it, you get kind of that hint of a shadow. And I think it's a really neat effect. I also love that I was able to just die cut a mask from some Post-it notes that I had on hand and give this stencil a little bit different look. So instead of having that circle there, I have that beautiful heart. As always, thanks for stopping by and thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the My Favorite Things YouTube channel. I'll be here once a month sharing cards that sparkle and shine with you. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks for stopping by today. If you want to subscribe to the My Favorite Things channel, just click that button here. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.